Happy Monday, everybody. It's time for another edition of Ask Mike. Courtney Mims alongside Mike Irwin here. And as always, Mike, I have to say, make sure that you like this video if you're watching on YouTube, to subscribe to us, because it does help us out, guys. And at the end of the day, when y'all like the video, it pops up in all these other people's feeds, and then the show goes viral, and we love to see that. So please help us out. Please like and subscribe to this video. Mike, we have a lot of basketball this week, and for rightful reason. We have the SEC tournament coming up this week in Nashville. Had those guys dead and buried right here on this show about 5 times. Can't do it, won't make it. See, I've told you, if I say Arkansas is not going to win, they win. Exactly. We just have to say what we don't want to happen.
Because I'm terrible at predictions.
Yeah, exactly.
Because we just sports have to say is not predictable.
It is not predictable, but we're going to try and predict some things today, which I know you hate, Mike. So our first question is from Lanny, who asks, is Arkansas in now with 19 wins and an 8-10 record in SEC play? Everybody is saying it, but I just don't trust the selection committee. I could see them putting Texas and Oklahoma in and leaving us out, even though our record is better.
Yeah, well, what you shouldn't trust are people that create their own bracketology. You know, there's numbers that you can use, the metrics or whatever, the analytics or whatever. There's people that are proven to know what they're talking about, like Lenardi. But then when you get people that do things like, there was this one guy.
Oh, no.
Who basically was trying to do this logic. He must be somebody that covers Nebraska. That's the only thing I can figure out. Because he was basically saying, because Nebraska didn't make the Big Ten tournament, that they were actually in good shape because they couldn't lose. And Arkansas, if they lost in the SEC tournament, Nebraska would jump up above them. Well, they're not even they're not even in, right? They're not even a play-in team. Yeah. So how would they jump that high?
They're in the last 4 out right now.
Look, here's the thing. Right now, Lenardi, and here's what I believe is going on. The committee does a lot of its stuff at the end of the regular season. They've got time to look where people finish. And I think they've already started figuring out where they're going to put people and all of that. And then what they do with the conference tournament is they look for upsets. Like, for instance, if Texas, which I believe is out, I don't believe they've got any chance unless
they win it all.
They win it all.
Yeah.
And then the committee has no choice because it's an automatic bid.
Exactly.
So if that happened, then you'd have to have some adjusting. So they know they're going to have to do that. So I think they set it up the way they think it's going to be, and then they wait for the changes that they have to make. So if you're worried about Texas, I think they got to win the SEC tournament. I still don't think that would knock Arkansas out. It would probably knock Oklahoma out. If Oklahoma were to win the SEC tournament, still doesn't knock Arkansas out. Arkansas is actually a 9 seed because of where they finished. It's projected that either 12 or 13 teams will get in from the SEC. Teams 9, 10, 11, and 12 all have the same conference record, but guess what? Arkansas beat the other 3. So that's why they're the 9 seed in the SEC tournament. Now, I don't think they're seeded that way in bracketology, which I don't understand why, but they're not. But they're still one from the bottom of the teams that don't have to play a play-in game. And again, Lenardi has them going to Lexington as a 10 seed.
I think that's the last time I looked, yeah.
And they're going to play Kansas, which is a 7 seed.
Yeah.
And then if they won that game, they'd probably have to play Alabama. And then you get into, I don't know, they have to play maybe St. John's. And then if they keep going, you might have to play Houston, that sort of thing. Razorback fans are already looking at this thing and say, we got to get to Wichita. That's where they want to go because that's the easiest trip. Now, if Arkansas, and that would be a thing the committee would do, send Arkansas to Lexington for obvious reasons. You don't have Kentucky there. How are you going to draw fans to that? Because you got a big arena. How are you going to draw it? You put Arkansas in there, all those Kentucky fans are going to come there to root against Arkansas.
Sure, yeah.
So it's not going to be good for Arkansas if they get sent to Lexington. It's going to be like a road game, but they've already won a road game against Kentucky there. So maybe it'll motivate them the way it did the last time.
Maybe it will. And to kind of go back to your point on all of this, with a lot of people go, well, now they need to show up in the SEC tournament. Now they need to show up. And I go back to what Coach Calipari said, okay? I think he was saying this to Chuck, right? And I saw a soundbite about it where he said, look, we've always treated, he said, I don't care about the SEC tournament. I don't. He said, we have always treated the SEC tournament as a way to get a better seeding, right? You're fighting to get a better seeding. You're not fighting, you're not using it to get in unless you're a team like South Carolina, Texas, who would need to win the whole thing to get there.
I don't even think it gets you a better seeding in most cases.
Okay, I think it does. I think they do use it to give you.
I think they know where they want to put you, and they don't want to start doing a lot of movement, but sometimes they have to. And I just don't see them going, ooh, the Arkansas didn't win this, but ooh, this team won, so let's move them up, let's move them down. I don't think they do that.
I think there is something to be said about the seeding, you know, and how the SEC tournament, it has to affect something. I just don't think you should be putting all your eggs in a basket and going, well, if Arkansas loses to South Carolina, they're out.
I think there's a reason why Lenardi knows this stuff, and it's because they've already determined a bunch of stuff, and he's got sources.
Oh, he definitely, there's a reason why the man is 95% accurate with all of this. There's a reason why. And so, that's just my 2 cents there. I think everyone telling you that Arkansas has to go win a couple in the SEC tournament.
Let's wait and see if they're in Lexington. I'm not going to be shocked if that's where they end up.
I won't be shocked either. Mousetown wants to know, what do you think about Adu's performance against Mississippi State? To me, it came out of the blue, but you've been saying for a month that he could be a big scorer if they would just get the ball to him.
Well, I think and I wasn't talking about 21 points. That blew me away. I never envisioned that.
Yeah.
But he was scoring anywhere from 2 to 4 in most games, and I said, hey, he's really capable of more like 10.
Yeah.
And that's what I was thinking about. Now, what the difference, there was one, it wasn't just getting him the ball, because how many times have we seen this season, even after he started recovering from the injury he had, how many times did we see them get the ball to him and then he'd kind of look around and pass it back out? He got more aggressive in this game. He didn't toss it back outside. When he got it, he went, I'm going to the basket. And that's why he did what he did. So that's huge. Brazil tapered off a little bit from the game he'd had, the game at Vanderbilt. He tailed off a little bit, but he still was better. And so when both of them are playing like this is a different team. So I did not envision him scoring 21 points, and I don't think he's going to do that night in and night out, but I think if he can get 10, 11, still rebound, now he needs to continue to play defense and do that.
Yeah, I think if you get him and Trevin clicking on the same cylinder
like that. It makes a big difference.
Yeah, it does, and they'll win more than I think a lot of people bargained them winning. I mean, they could go very far in the NCAA tournament if you have those two guys playing at a high level. The key is getting them to play at the high level at the same time, and so hopefully they figured that out. Speaking of Trevin Brazil, Marty Bird's proxy has a question. Trevin Brazil has really hit his stride. He has. One assumes Cal at least had a hand in flipping that switch. What Razorback coach, any sport, was a master at turning an individual player around when needed?
I mean, you can go, the list is long. I mean, you can go to Eddie Sutton, you could go to Nolan. When I think about football coaches, I think Hatfield was pretty good at that. I don't know about Lou. Lou was just so weird. I mean, and maybe it was that I didn't like the guy and I'm prejudiced. I don't know. It's interesting, DJ Williams, who works with us, works out of Little Rock, but he does a lot of our Pig Trail Nation stuff. He played for both Houston Nutt and Bobby Petrino, and he's told us a lot about how different they were, but both of them, he gave credit for taking guys and getting the most out of them, taking a guy that had an issue and turning him around. So I think both of those coaches did that, but they used a different approach. And then when you get into some other sports, Dave Van Horn, Norm DeBryan, they were both good at that. But the guy that was probably best at it was John McDonnell. And I'll tell you this, he didn't win all those national championships just because he always had the best guys. He had a way of taking guys that hadn't done very much during the year, and they got to the national meet and did something you never expected them to do. And he didn't do it himself. He used their teammates to kind of rally around them and get them to buy into that. You don't win 40 national championships without that ability to take somebody. What he always did is just when it looked like they weren't going to win because the point totals, and they're looking at it as it's going along and you're looking up and you're going, oh, he's supposed to do this. somebody would just come up out of nowhere. They were supposed to finish 5th and they'd finish 2nd, or they'd win an event. Wow. And so he was probably the best at doing that, flipping the switch, taking somebody that was probably capable of more than you'd seen, and all of a sudden at the right time he gets them to perform.
Well, as they say, the proof is in the pudding. Like you said, you don't win 40 national titles
Exactly.
without being able to do that as a great coach. KY Hog asks, how did our 5-star recruit react to the crowd on Saturday? He's been to Kentucky. They're always loud and they fill up Rub. I'm worried with what I saw on TV. The atmosphere in Bud Walton Arena is just not the same.
Well, part of the problem with that game was the start time.
Oh,
Razorback
gosh,
fans
yeah.
hate 11 a.m. games. They just
Terrible.
do. It's bad for football. It's bad for basketball.
I hate them. I hate them.
So I think that was some of the issue there. I don't know what the recruit thought. I haven't heard anything about him going, oh, this is bad or this is good or whatever. So I couldn't answer that question. I'm not a recruiting guy. But I do think I've talked about the crowd this year all the way back in November and December. And I talked about excuses. Oh, the weather was bad. Oh, it was this, it was that. I think some of what's going on there has to do with the fact that this is an entirely new team. They didn't know these guys when the season started. I do think it got better after they started winning and coming back. People got a little bit excited, and I think now the fans are really into this bunch of guys. They are one of the most inspiring groups I've ever seen. For a bunch of guys that I thought were dead in the water about 3 or 4 different times, and they just refused to quit. So there's that. But then you've got all this stuff with people, you know, giving up their seats because there's a new seating plan, and so some of them are mad at the athletic department. You've just got a lot of reasons why Bud Walton Arena is not what it was. Can it ever get back that way again? I don't know. It absolutely rivaled Rupp Arena or any other basketball facility I've ever seen when Arkansas had good teams. But this, maybe not a great team, but right now it's an inspiring team. So they should have a full house, and they should be enthusiastic. But I've talked to people. I was watching. I wasn't working, so I was watching on television. But I'm told it wasn't full, and I'm told the crowd was kind of at times. They just didn't. It wasn't real inspiring. So I don't know what the recruit thought, but something has to give here, and I don't know what it's going to be, but you got to get that place back the way it was meant to be.
I mean, it definitely, and we're going to talk about the new seating plan because we have some comments on it, but you almost think, you know that they have to do something, but you almost think this was kind of a weird time to put in that new seating plan as well, because there's a lot of people mad about it, and it's just, we'll talk about that,
and
but I want to get your thoughts.
NIL and players don't stay, and you've got a whole new team, and some of them are only going to be here for 1 year, like they had senior day, and only one senior that had actually been here before.
Austin Blake, there you go.
He doesn't play, so it was just a little weird that you got Boogie, you've got Jonas Adu and John L. Davis as your seniors. And they've been here 1 year, and it's like, you haven't been around forever. You kind of just got here, and now we're saying bye-bye to you.
Yeah, it's tough, and we're going to get into kind of the reseeding and all of that, and I'm curious to get your opinion on that. But right now it's a weird time, and I understand fans' concerns of why they're like, well, I just don't know how I feel about this, and it's just changing. But we're going to get into that because it goes into revenue sharing as well. But Eddie Lynn says, I'm reading a lot of hype about the basketball Hogs' improved offense. Cal should get a lot of credit for that, but have you looked at the defense lately? Not good. Almost cost a win against Mississippi State.
This is kind of strange. It does happen, but Arkansas gave up the most points it's given up all year, 92 points. No one scored more than 92 on them all year. But they won. So you say to yourself, well, don't get too critical there. It doesn't matter how many points the other team scores if you win. Cal did talk about this. I'm trying to remember when he said it, but it was after one of these recent games where they started giving up a lot of points inside. And he said, other teams are going to see that now, and they're going to come after us. And that's what's been happening. There are some issues there. I think the absence of Adu Theroux is an issue because he's quick, but he can jump, and I think they need him to defend down low. Because here's what's happening with Z, it's happening with Adu, and it's happening to Brazil some. Number one, they tend to double team a lot. So somebody's coming on a dribble drive into the lane, you go out and you double team. What does that do? That leaves a spot open, baby. If he dishes off, boom, the guy's behind you. Or sometimes when you go to double team, the guy with the ball kicks it out behind the three-point line because nobody's over there, and you got a wide open three.
Or you have two guys under the basket, and it's 2 against 1, and they're getting a second chance point out of it. They're getting second chance points. That's another thing.
But probably the thing that happens the most is it's just quickness.
Yeah.
And this is where a dude could match that. But if you're here and somebody gets around you very quickly and then gets his shoulder on this out inside shoulder, and then he's got his shoulder, and then his arm is away from him, you can't block that shot. It just goes off the backboard and in. And we're seeing that happen a lot. And I don't know that there's a solution to that if you don't get Thiero back. And we'll talk about that in a minute, but I think they need him back. I really do.
Well, we're going to talk about that right now. That's actually the next question. I'm glad you already brought that up, because it's Hog Redneck who says, any update on a Thiero or even Boogie Fland? We've survived without them, but it would be nice to get them back for the NCAAs.
There hasn't been anything official. I mean, there was some stuff on Boogie Fland by one of these, I call them fake websites. It's somebody creates. Well, they call it. It's got a name, Razorback, blah blah blah, and then you don't know who these people are, and they put up a big picture of Boogie Fland, and it says breaking news, breaking.
Yeah.
And then it says sources inside the program say he's going to come back for the NCAA tournament. But then when you start asking anybody inside the program, they're just like, they're silent. I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
But it doesn't sound like he's going to do that. There's been no word, no official word. So if you want to read that stuff and get excited, you can. And it may be true, but I don't know if either one of them are coming back.
Right now, it's remained to be seen, right? We are kind of in a holding pattern, and we don't know. And I know we talked a little bit about Thiero on last week's show and what you had heard that he was dealing with, but we don't know. I mean, the end all be all is that all we've gotten from the university on Boogie Fland is that he's out, and he will start.
We just know he had the splint off his thumb.
Exactly. Well, we've seen that, and But we don't know if he's been in practice.
Right.
We don't know if he's practicing. Again, it's kind of like right now, it's like he said, she said kind of thing. And you're hearing one thing and you're going, oh, could it be this? Could it be that? Right now, we don't know. And so it would be great to get a Thiero back. I don't even know if it would help getting Boogie back.
That's right. Thiero is the one you want back.
Thiero is the one you want back. And I'm not saying it's because Boogie is not talented or amazing. It would be awesome to have him back. But you kind of have DJ stepping into the role of point guard right now and taking on that role.
Yeah, he had a huge game. He had a huge game against Mississippi State, including that huge three. They don't win that game if he doesn't hit that three.
Exactly. And what I'm saying is he looks more and more comfortable there in that role. And so when you get Boogie back, how do you insert him? What happens? That's my whole question is, if you get Boogie back, what do you do with him? Because it looks like people are feeling more comfortable in their roles right now, and you wouldn't want to mess that up. Hot Dogger says, I bet that Boogie Fland returns to the Razorbacks to play next season since his season was interrupted by injury. What say you?
I would bet that he would not return.
No.
If you look at the projections, he's anywhere from late lottery pick to still first round.
Yeah.
Cal's been pretty consistent over the years. If a player's going to go that high, he tells them to go ahead and go. That's one of the reasons he's able to recruit.
Yeah.
He doesn't try to hang on to guys that probably should go. Yeah. Here's what will happen. He will work out. What they're going to be looking at is whether he's come back from this injury, whether it's affecting him.
If he can participate in pre-draft workouts,
If he can,
right?
They're going to look at it. They're probably going to have their own doctors look at it and say, hey, if for some reason they all concluded you probably need another year, then he would come back. But I don't see that.
I don't see it happening, because if he can participate, it would be key for me to see if he can participate in those pre-draft workouts. Because if you look at any NBA draft projections and all of that, they're all saying the same thing. He will solidify his spot as a late lottery pick or first round if he can participate in those pre-draft workouts and what he looks like there. I don't think he's coming back. I've talked to a few NBA scouts that said, nah, he's not coming back. But remains to be seen, right? With the last game of the season played at Bud Walton Arena, some fans are giving up seats that they've had for years. We've talked about that with the reseating.
They post on the internet, and a guy
they do, yeah.
He shows his seat, and it has RIP, or it's been fun, or my seats are gone. And it's real sad, you know. But it is your choice. You can keep those seats. Yeah, it's just going to cost you.
You got to get money, right? So we're going to talk about it, because who is to blame for this, right? And everybody has somebody else that they want to point the finger at. So Rick B., who I know really well, and he put this on social media. He put it on X. All you people blaming Hunter Yurachek need to just stop it. He is not the villain. If you want someone to blame the new age of college sports. Well, he had some responses to it, right? And let's show those responses real quick, and then we'll discuss. So Hognonymous, I think it was Hognonymous, said, wrong. When our reseating is going to make us the highest tickets in the conference, that's an issue. He doesn't care about the fans or winning. He cares about money. And then somebody else responded, Joe loves roaches.
Weird
name, but okay. Money is what drives the program in recruiting and keeping players. People, I'm not going to say that word on air, but a nasty word. People want to yell about crappy teams, but don't want to pay for NIL. Can't have it both ways.
Yeah, I agree with that response for sure in the first one. Now, the second one, you know, a guy's mad. But come on. You're going to say that he only wants money, but he doesn't care about winning. He wants the money to win. If you've got an AD that doesn't care about winning, he's going to get fired. That's the whole issue here.
Oh, really, Mike? He'll get fired for not
If you don't care about winning, you will get fired.
Oh, great. What a concept.
So, look, I'm going to drum this again because some people still don't get it. When revenue sharing kicks in, and it's supposed to start this summer, so it'll be in place for the next academic year, a lot of the money that players get is going to shift from NIL to money within the athletic department, and they then there's a cap on it, so everybody's the same.
Yeah,
and then the coaches decide how much each player gets. But you don't have one school able to outbid another one for players. So that's going to make the fans happy in some respects, because it's not going to just be a bidding war. And I believe it's going to greatly reduce how many teams go out and steal somebody else out of the portal. Because how are you going to steal somebody from the portal if you don't have more money than the other guys do? So all that's good. The price to pay for that is you have to have the maximum needed to meet that cap. And that means you've got to constantly, if you're the athletic director, make sure that you can come up with, and next year for Arkansas, because you've got extra scholarships, it's more like a $25 million extra amount.
It's like 25 mil, yeah.
For most schools, it's about 22.5 million, but you have to generate that money every year. Now, where do you get that money? You get a lot of it from TV. And you get a lot of it from organizations like the Razorback Foundation, where boosters and ordinary fans can contribute to the foundation, which that money goes into the athletic department. But a big part of it also comes from your ticket sales, what they call live gate sales. And how do you, if you have the ability to make more money by raising the cost of ticket sales, and you don't think it's going to, you know, cause you not to have sellouts or whatever, or you're going to have problems, I mean, that's always an economic thing. It's a price thing in any store. It doesn't matter if it's Walmart, some other grocery store. There's an ideal price for a product, and you'll see it. If you price it too high, people will stop buying it. But if you price it too low, are you screwing up? Of course you are. You want to get the most amount that you can get for whatever that ticket is worth, that season ticket is worth, and that's what they're trying to do. They believe that because they haven't regularly raised these prices and donations required, that the tickets have been undervalued, and so they're doing in basketball what they did in baseball a couple of years ago. They're putting it back online with what it should be, but it's a big jump for people that have been used to that. Yeah. And all I can say is you've been getting a real value for your money. Now you're pretty much going to pay for what the market says it's worth. And I don't think when he does this plan, you're going to see a lot of these tickets not sold. They'll get sold one way or the other. Yeah. Now, will it change the fan base? Will you not have some loyal people? Will he be replaced by corporate tickets and some guys just sitting there because he was at work and they said, hey, here's a ticket to the game tonight, and you're not really into it? Maybe that happens. It's back what we talked about earlier. How does all of this affect Bud Walton Arena? Does it turn it into something that it wasn't? In other words, take what it used to be and now it can't be that way again? I don't know. I can't project into the future.
Well, my whole point of this is we're going to see what happens, because the biggest way you can make an impact of, if you don't like this, right, then don't pay for it, right? You can make your voice heard by saying, obviously posting on social media and things like that, but also by just putting your money where your mouth is and saying, I'm not going to pay for that. I'm not going to do that. And we will see what happens with those tickets. They clearly feel like they will get that money. Hunter Yurchek and the board and all those people clearly feel, or when they made this choice, that they were going to make money off of it, and they weren't going to have empty seats and all of those. There weren't going to be people buying those tickets. Do you see what I'm saying?
I do.
So I'm intrigued to know how it'll pay off.
Okay,
in the
and
long run.
if the ticket sales drop, if he's overreached, then the only other option he's got is to really cut back on expenses, cut back on the number of people employed in the athletic department. He did that a few years ago with COVID. You know, take some people and give them early retirement or whatever. You could cut back. But when the word gets out there that you're doing that stuff, you're viewed as a weak sister in terms of the rest of the SEC. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, if you want Arkansas to win in basketball, if you want Arkansas to win in football, if you want them to win in baseball, whatever sports you're talking about, now under revenue sharing, the money has to be there, or you won't if you can't meet the cap.
No, you'll be behind if you can't meet the cap. Right. And that's just a fact of life right now. We'll see what happens. I am very curious, because I know it's hurt a lot of people, right, and I feel for those fans. I do. I hate seeing those posts on social media. But I'm intrigued to see how the plan is going to work out, because if it's going to make Arkansas competitive, if it's going to make that money, and it's going to do, you know, it's going to be there, then are you going to be mad because your team is winning? I'm curious. That's what I'm curious about moving forward from this. WV Hog fan wants to know, what are your thoughts, Mike, about some teams canceling their spring football games?
Well, why are they canceling these games? The biggest explanation for some that are considering it or going to do it is because they're afraid that other coaches sit there and watch your spring game and look at who plays well, and then they're going to come after them in the portal. Okay, maybe, but we've talked about that's all changing. There's going to be less of that, I promise you. If you don't have if you're not, Ole Miss's days of going, oh, we've got $20 million NIL money, we'll just steal everybody we want. That's going away. I'm not saying they don't have some ability to do it, but it won't be like it is now. And also, with revenue sharing, I believe there's going to be a contract involved. So if you come in and you agree to, you know, okay, I'm going to this school and they're going to pay me this much money, well, maybe it's for 2 years. So I don't think you're going to have to worry about some Lane Kiffin sitting over there watching, you know, Arkansas on TV and going, oh boy, look at that wide receiver they've got. I never heard of him, but we're going to go get him. I think that's going away.
Well, Sam Pittman agrees with you on that. That's what he said in his press conference last week.
This isn't going to affect him.
Yeah.
And we're going to have the red-white game, and he believes in it. And not only that, and I wondered about this, I did, but he, in his press conference the other day, pre-spring press conference, he said the media can go to all of the practices and watch the whole thing. There are some restrictions on, we can't shoot the whole thing, and that's always been the case. And you can't report injuries, and you can't report actual conversations that you hear. Like if Bobby Petrino starts cussing some guy out, you can't get on TV and say, Bobby Petrino,
heard Bobby say this,
and that. They don't want you to do that. You can say, hey, you really got all over this guy. Just don't repeat the actual conversation. So there's a few little rules, but we like it because it allows us to do what we're supposed to do, which is what? Number one, almost half this roster is new. Think about that. Almost half the players on the roster are new faces. So our job is to let you know who's new and who's made an impact, who's making an impact, so that you'll know who these people are. And then when you come out to the red-white game, you will already have been informed of who to look for. And then the other thing is, there are some guys coming back who were freshmen, sophomores last year that are coming into a situation where they can contribute. So we will be reporting on them too, so you will know to show up and look at them. So he's allowing us to do our job to inform the fans, and then they can come out and watch what's going on and see if progress is being made. And I do think, while you don't, look, I've said this before, I believe they ought to actually have a real spring game against an opponent.
I love that idea. I
do.
love that idea.
Love it. If you want to talk about Arkansas State, do it like that.
I think it would be great because I think it would give the fans something to get excited for. You're playing somebody other than yourself, you know. It's up the ante a little bit of it. It's more. I think the TV people would like that too. I bet, to say, hey, you know, we're going to air a real game.
Yeah, and you get bigger crowds. So yeah. I'd love to see it that way. But the next best thing is to continue what they've been doing. And no, you won't sell Reynolds Razorback Stadium out, but those that show up will show up for a reason. And I think that's a lot better than saying, we're not telling you what's going on in the spring, wait till next fall. I mean, summer is a boring time anyway.
It is.
So you need something to talk about. So if you've got that spring that you've looked at and you've seen what's happened, give you something to chatter about through the summer.
Yeah, and I think Sam made also a really good point about, I think we owe it to the people here, the fans here, to go out and show them what we have in our football team. And I think that's, you know, there's a lot of coaches that do not agree with that with their fan bases, and that's why they're canceling spring games.
Exactly.
And their fan bases are very upset over them canceling spring games. So I think it's great that they're doing a spring game and that they're going to be allowing us to have a look at what the team looks like in a lot of practices this spring. Dr. Strangepork says some posters are disgruntled by the pre-conference schedule of the softball team, yet when I compare it to the other SEC teams, the schedule is really similar. Some gimmies, a few tough ones, and several tournaments.
Yeah, look, here's what I'm hearing people complain about with softball. They had this incredible record. I think they were, at one point, they were something like 19-1.
Yep, and that's the best start in program history.
And then but the one team they'd run ruled something like 8 or 9.
15? I think it was 15.
Yeah,
something
crazy.
Yeah.
So they'd run ruled all these teams, but they had one loss. But that one loss was to the one ranked team that they played, and they got run ruled. Okay, so then they start SEC play, and right off the bat they get run ruled in the first Friday game. That's a road game at Ole Miss. So now you've played two ranked teams and they've run ruled you when you've been run ruling everybody else. So that makes people go, well, you've been playing a softball schedule. That's not necessarily the case. If you look at their schedule, it's not really much different from other. I've checked the schedule of other SEC teams. Nobody sits around and plays a bunch of ranked teams in a conference as tough as the SEC is, because you're going to lose enough games once conference play starts. I don't care who you are. So you don't need to be battling a bunch of top 10 teams in non-conference games. So I don't think there's any real. I don't think it proves that the softball team had a bad schedule or a weak schedule. And they did come back on Sunday and run rule Ole Miss.
Yeah, scored 20 runs in that game.
I think we both thought they got tired of that. They got tired. They got hit in the mouth in the first two SEC games, especially the first one. And that can happen if you've been playing a bunch of teams that aren't that good and you're used to knocking them all over the place. Then all of a sudden you play somebody that can fight back. You're going, whoa, and you get hit in the mouth. But then you get mad and you come back and they run rule them. And I mean, they run 20-3.
Yeah, 20-3. I mean, it wasn't just a run rule game. It was a freaking.
So I'm not giving up on softball yet.
No. And I think for everybody saying that, obviously we can look back a little. If we just get through, they've played one SEC series so far. They played one.
It was on the road.
It was on the road. And Ole Miss isn't a bad team. They were also ranked. They were ranked 25, I believe. And so they weren't a bad team. But, Mike, I'll say this. They played it's one series. Give them some time. If they keep losing, if they keep getting run ruled by multiple teams, then you have a point there. Okay, maybe the non-conference schedule is not good. Moving on, though. S. Giles says, I'm very impressed with the Diamond Hogs so far. The pitching, hitting, and defense is all really good, but after what happened to softball, I'm worried that SEC play is going to bring me back down to earth in a hurry.
Yeah, it's a little bit different here. Arkansas is only one. They've run ruled not as many as the softball team did, but they only have one loss right now. They're 15 and 1 right now. 16, 15 and 1. They have a chance to be 16-1 before starting SEC play. And it's weird because they also go on the road against Ole Miss.
They do, yeah.
And Ole Miss is ranked. Arkansas has played one ranked team, and they beat them. Okay, number 1 LSU has played one ranked team, and they beat them, so that's similar. They do have a common opponent. The one team Arkansas lost to, Kansas State, by 1 run. LSU beat Kansas State, but it went into extra innings for them to do it. So there's no real thing to be concerned about there. If you look at Arkansas's schedule, especially compared to Tennessee, which is 16-0 and I think they're number 2, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep, I think so.
Arkansas's got a much tougher schedule. Tennessee's the one. They played I think only 4 of their teams have winning records that they played against, something like that.
Wow.
Arkansas's played some good teams.
Well, look at Charlotte.
Charlotte
I was seeing the
pitched
clip.
a no-hitter the other day.
Yeah, Charlotte against James Madison.
Right.
So that could be a quality sweep for them.
What it looks like right now is that all of the issues that we saw last year have kind of been resolved because you're hitting home runs, but that's not all you're doing. You're getting lots of doubles, you're getting lots of singles, you're moving guys around on the bases, you're stealing bases, you're playing really good defense, and your pitching is good. So where's the problem? Right now,
People will find one.
Well, sure, and again, I mean, it's the same thing. It's even worse, I think. How many? 12 of the top 16 in baseball are in the top 25, and it's 5 in the top 10. So again, yes, when you start conference play, but look, last year Arkansas, I think, had 2 losses going in to the start of SEC play, and they still won the West. This year they got 1 loss. I don't know that means, and there is no West anymore, so I don't know what that means about where they finished, 1, 2, 3, 4 in the league or whatever. But there's just no sign right now that the schedule is soft and that they're really going to start falling apart once they play SEC games. Yes, they'll start losing some games.
Oh, sure.
The question is how many.
Yeah.
You know, how many do you lose a series at home? That's not good. Do you get swept at home? That would be awful.
Yeah.
Do you go on the road and win a series here and there? That would be good. So that's what you're looking for. You expect most of the time against your better SEC teams to lose at least 1 game on the road, and you're probably going to lose 2 or 3 at some places.
Yeah, it's just the way we talk about the SEC being tough, and it's not only tough in men's basketball, it's tough in baseball, it's tough in softball, and so you do have to look at things like, okay, take a step back and go, you're going to lose games in the conference. That's just because of how tough it is. But I will say this about baseball. You and Evan talked about this last week on PTN Extra because some people were worried about the offense. Well, statistically, I think you guys brought this up. They are in a much better spot than they were last year.
Yeah, team batting average is way up.
That's what I'm saying. So
again, it's the doubles that have gone up this year. They're hitting a lot more doubles than they did last year.
So statistically, if you're going off last year and you're going, oh, last year, statistically they're in a better spot. We'll see if these non-conference, like Charlotte, can Charlotte keep doing good stuff? Can they keep winning and that be a quality sweep for Arkansas moving forward? We'll see. We don't really know much about these teams early on in the season.
Right.
So we'll see what happens moving forward. I'm excited about baseball and the softball season. Excited to see what the men's basketball team does in the postseason.
Everything's looking good right now.
We say that, knock on wood, right? We just have to knock on wood.
We've gone through some pain, so we deserve it.
Yeah, I think so. I think the fans deserve it as well. So that's going to do it for this week's Ask Mike.
Oh, you left one out. The last question. Don't forget the one. That's an interesting one.
What? Where?
Maybe it's not on your script.
Might not be on my script.
It's
Wait,
the
hold on.
one about which coach in any sport do you think Arkansas gave up on too soon?
Okay, you bring that up. Sorry, that wasn't on my paper. I apologize, Mike.
My fault.
No, it's all right. Okay, we have one final question for the show. Pigs Feet asks, do you think which coach, any sport, do you think that Arkansas gave up on too quickly? And that is a great question.
A lot of fans won't remember this. Some will. It's Joe Kynes. Joe Kynes took over when Jack Crow got fired. Now, Jack Crow got fired the week before Arkansas played its first ever SEC football game. Think about that. You're the defensive coordinator. They fire the head coach 1 game into the season. You've got a few days to get Arkansas ready to go on the road to South Carolina. And South Carolina, I'm telling you, I'd never been there before. I went to that game. It was unbelievable. It was full. The fans were all drunk. They were mad at me. I was down there because they knew somehow that I wasn't local media. They were yelling and cussing at me while I'm down there trying to shoot. And somehow they came out and won that game. I thought, wow. Now, the team was a mess at that point. They didn't really have a quarterback that could win in the SEC. They had some other holes in there. There's some recruiting issues that had been going on ever since Crow, took over the program. And so they didn't win a lot of games. I think they only won 3, but they did beat number 4 Tennessee at Tennessee. It was a huge upset. Again, Joe Kynes pulls that off. And then they finished the season by beating LSU. Here's the thing about, and I didn't know much about Joe. I mean, he's an assistant coach. We don't pay a lot of attention to them. But once he became the head coach, I started talking to players and just observing practice and what they were doing. This guy probably related to players better than anybody I've ever seen. I mean, you talk about Houston not being a player's coach. Joe Kynes was like, these players, he spoke their language. And probably should have mentioned him as a guy that can get more out of a player. He was unbelievable. Now, here's what happened. He didn't get that job. If they had won 8 or 9 games, Frank might have considered it. But Frank fired Jack Crow anyway because he had violated his own rule of hiring a coach that had never been a head coach when he hired Jack Crow. He wasn't going to turn around and do it again. But Frank was guilty of not being out there every single day and observing what was going on. And then he could have gone in the locker room where we can't. And he could have seen a lot of things that even I didn't see. But I'm telling you, that guy, I've always told people, he's the best head coach that was never a head coach. Now, he was an interim head coach twice. He ended up later being the interim head coach at Alabama. It was a very similar situation. The program was screwed up. They fired a guy. He got thrown into the mix, did the best he could. They didn't make him full-time either. He should have been hired twice. I'm absolutely convinced if you'd have hired this guy, he would have recruited. The players would have played for him because they respected him. And there's no telling what would have happened if they had made this guy head coach. And he just never was. And it's sad to me because I've never been around a guy. I mean, I'm going all the way back to my high school days when I'm looking at him and I'm watching how players react to him and I'm going, wow, this guy is incredible. The way players just got around him and were attracted to what he was saying and buying into what he was doing and the way he could relate to them he didn't do a lot of yelling and screaming. They just respected him and played hard for him. And yeah, you say, well, then he should have won more than 3 games. The program was a mess. He didn't have a quarterback. But if he'd have had Barry Lundy later and some of the things that Danny Ford had later on, he'd have been here a lot longer than Danny Ford, and he would have won the SEC. I believe that.
Wow, okay. Well, that was a good question. I'm glad you didn't let me leave that one off. I didn't leave any more off, did I, Mike?
Nope, that's it.
All right, good. That's going to do it for this week's Ask Mike. We'll see you next Monday to answer more of your questions.